Hello, nice to be here. This is Stephen Collins, co-founder and CEO of Anark. And we are really excited about talking about a very specific topic today around the use and leveraging of open standards in manufacturing to improve communication and collaboration across the extended enterprise. And really looking forward to the discussion. Jim, you can move forward. So just to provide a little background and context for today's conversations is to understand where Anark is coming from as we talk about the topics we're going to cover today. Thought I'd provide just a really brief overview about the company, just so you understand how we're helping leading manufacturing organizations, throughout the extended manufacturing community. So Anark is a leading provider of technical content management, visual collaboration software. We are empowering and enabling the digital transformation initiatives of industry leaders, both leading OEMs and their supplier communities across the whole spectrum of discrete manufacturing segments. And this shows you just a sample set of some of the customers we're helping, and many of them on a global scale. Specifically, Anark enables customers to generate and manage role-specific or fit-for-purpose technical data packages and digital workflows for more efficient communication and collaboration along the digital thread. And specifically relevant for today's topic is that Anark is a founding member of the 3D-PDF consortium with what is considered to be the most advanced automated 3D-PDF publishing with high-fidelity multi-CAD model-based definition support. And we're going to be showing you some examples of what that can look like. We're based here in Boulder, Colorado, where I'm speaking from, and we have offices throughout North America and India, and we have a growing network of technology and integration partners worldwide. So additionally, to provide a further foundation for today's discussion, wanted to cover a few key terms that we relate to and work with and help our customers with on a regular basis. And just these are just these aren't Anark concepts by any stretch. These are just industry movements that are relevant for today's conversations. The first is the concept of intelligent information management, and really IIM, as it's referred to, is really the next frontier of enterprise content management, and it really is all about helping manufacturing and other organizations really bring together raw data, business data, with context to provide really useful content for folks who are along throughout the various parts of an organization to have access to the right information, the right place, right time, to more effectively do their jobs and make real-time decisions. And IAM is also really about pulling together the disparate kinds of information that might exist across an enterprise ecosystem, and how you can bring those data types and from data sources together to really provide value in delivering that in-context data as it's needed throughout the extended enterprise. Industry 4.0 is a pretty commonly understood topic. It's really all about the smart factory and really about the synchronization and communication and cooperation between both cyber physical systems and humans in real time, again, to help more efficiently provide the right information across an organization, as well as out to extended participants and partners in the value chain. A lot of our customers, we are actively helping with their Industry 4.0 initiatives. And digital thread, these are very related concepts, but digital thread is also a pretty familiar term to most folks these days. It really refers to establishing a communication framework that allows a connected data flow of technical information, an integrated view of an asset's data throughout its life cycle across what are typically siloed functional perspectives in organizations. So how do you permeate those siloed functional areas so that everybody has access and transparency to the right data? And then very important for today's conversation is also a pretty familiar term, which is model-based enterprise. And we look at model-based enterprise as really a subset of digital thread. It's really for organizations that are taking a model-centric approach, or having model-based information. So not only the model and the geometry, but all of the model-based definition, PMI, product manufacturing information as needed as the centerpiece to communication and collaboration for a variety of downstream use cases. Model-based enterprise can deliver tremendous value and efficiency for the organizations that are embracing it effectively. Next, Jim. And then really also at the center of some of the things we're going to be showing you is really the importance, and this is something we see every day, the importance of embracing open standards in the delivery and consumption of technical content. You know, for quite some time in our industry as well as others, it's been historically very hard to access the right information in the right form at the right place in a way that really helps drive better decision making, more efficient decision making across an enterprise, throughout a supplier community, partner base, and so forth. And so the emergence of specific content standards and standards organizations has been critical to establish common frameworks and formats and systems and processes focused on interoperability and data access in a way that really can help everyone effectively deliver, package, consume data in the right form, and not have to rely on a closed proprietary system to achieve that goal, which of course makes it less efficient and more problematic. So today we're going to be talking and showing some examples of course, PDF, 3D PDF with ISO standard PRC included. We're going to be talking about some of the standards organizations. There's just such a strong emerging and existing group of standards organizations. Obviously, ISO, PDF Association, PDES, 3D PDF Consortium, and so forth, that are really all about helping promote these open standards for everybody's benefits. And we'll be talking about things like W3C compliant, WebGL based content, and also GLTF along the way. So again, interoperability and embracing open standards as the cornerstone of a company's digitalization strategy, we believe that's quite critical, and we see that proven out every day with the companies that we work with. Next slide. So let's drill down a little bit now on the concept of a technical data package, which in the manufacturing community means a lot, and this is an area where PDF, and particularly 3D PDF, often plays a very strong role as a delivery vehicle and an access point for sharing packaged technical data of a variety of forms that the downstream consumers throughout manufacturing, engineering, supply chain, service, contract manufacturing can access the important information that they need to do their jobs. And likewise, with the emergence of more advanced web technologies and standards such as HTML5, that same type of content can be delivered via browser-based access, and the two, both PDF and HTML5, can work harmoniously together to provide complete spectrum of accessibility to technical content, fit-for-purpose technical content as needed, depending on the processes, policies, and technical infrastructure that an organization might be dealing with. So the way we think about a technical data package and its use throughout the extended enterprise is the idea that you and most organizations want to be able to bring together often disparate types of data from different authoritative data systems. Many large OEMs have multiple PLM, multiple ERP, homegrown data management systems. They might want to bring together 3D model-based definition information with bill of materials information or drawings, anything or instructions depending on the use case, and bring that together in the right form so that the downstream consumers can have access to the right information to collaborate with one another and to do their jobs. We're going to be showing you some examples, both PDF as well as HTML, and then how the two relate to each other and can be used in harmony to, provide that managed and effective data access across the extended enterprise. Next slide. And then I think it's important, and a lot of companies are often wondering as they embrace new technologies, new processes, and of course a lot of this discussion today is focused on PDF and 3D PDF in particular, That's often utilized in organizations' digital thread and model-based enterprise initiatives. And what we've seen, and these are public statistics here, findings and results. We also have quite a bit of ROI and performance benefits. It's shared confidentially with us from our customers. But what we're finding is that organizations that effectively incorporate digitalization strategies and often including model-based enterprise is a centerpiece to that. If they get the processes right and they understand how data is going to be best utilized and accessed for optimal performance throughout engineering, manufacturing, supply chain, field service, and so forth, what they're finding is that they're seeing substantial improvements in quality. They're finding their engineering times are coming down dramatically. They're doing substantially less, manufacturing supplier rework. So you see reductions in material waste and scrap, which saves a tremendous amount of expense. Products are coming to market faster. The benefits go on and on. So getting this right, and when we see organizations that are delivering that information to the downstream consumer in the right way, and then making sure that it's coherent and up to date in real time, so that everybody's always dealing with the correct authoritative data in order to do their jobs, we find that the performance benefits are tremendously positive. Jim, next slide. And so with those ideas in mind, we want to show you some examples of both PDF and web-based technical data packages and digital workflows to show how organizations can effectively package data using both 3D PDF as well as HTML web-based technical data packages, and how those two can relate to each other, and so you can see a good spectrum across a variety of use cases, just to provide a visual context for some of the things I've been talking about. Jim, do you want to take it from here?
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Martin. I'm also based out of Denver, just a little bit south of where Stephen is at. And so what I've put together is some typical 3D PDFs that people are creating in the industry. And so, for example, if you take a look at this first one, this is what somebody might call a technical data package, or a typical technical data package for essentially containing the views and the manufacturing information for, in this case, a TE connectivity component. And so you can see that this is a PDF. The thing that's a little bit different, if you've never seen a 3D PDF, is that this form field, which is the graphical region, is where we can get all of the information that comes from all the major CAD systems and present it exactly the way that the model was created within those CAD systems. And that could be MCAD, it could be ECAD, there's building information management in other areas. And so basically, in this case, you can see where things that are often done in CAD systems, such as cross sections and other type of dimensions in GD&T, can be maintained, and they can be cross-referenced into other form fields, Adobe form fields, such as the different views that came from that CAD system. And in addition, for example, you can see here there's a bill of materials that came over where we have the CAD item that we can pick, and it highlights, cross-highlights that item. And when we pick that item within the bill of materials, there's properties, descriptions, and other cross-reference information. So when Stephen was talking earlier about being able to harvest information that's in these different authoritative systems, often the centerpiece of a technical data package is going to be these models that are coming from these different CAD systems. And by being able to publish these into a 3D PDF, this eliminates the need for whoever's receiving it to have to figure out how to understand and manipulate proprietary CAD systems, or to figure out where all this other information that's in one of these documents comes from. And technical data packages have quite a few different variations on them. I'm going to leave it in this viewing mode because it's a little easier to work between the different ones that we have. So this is an example that came from Honeywell. In this case, this is a little bit different application of the 3D PDF technology, where what we're trying to do here is show a procedural step. And so what we have here is where we're looking at a printed circuit board chassis with the different motherboards that we're adding on. We can, when we pick one of these, we can see the required parts that are highlighted. When we pick that required part, you can get that supplier information that's associated with it. So you can see there's a wealth of information that we can publish into these 3D PDFs, and then we can do things such as an animation. So again, when you take a look at this PDF, I can send these sample PDFs to anybody, and as long as you have the free Adobe Reader, you can open these and you can animate these and do the things exactly the way that I'm doing them without any type of specialty plugins or add-ons, which makes it very valuable for people to be able to visualize and understand what they're looking at without having to understand. In this case, is a combination of a mechanical and electrical components that have been brought together. Okay. Here's another type of a technical data package. The one that's really interesting that I like about this one, this is one of our training examples, is that you can show tools. For example, you can see the part that's being created, but you can also see other tools and fixtures and other things that are needed to communicate a process. And so when you take a look at the way that these different 3D PDFs are being applied, they're used for communicating procurement. They're used to communicate manufacturing processes, but they could be used to communicate to the field how something should be assembled, or if there's a repair activity that's needed, that's something that could also be communicated as part of a 3D PDF and the different tools that are needed in order to execute that type of activity. I'll jump into one more here very quickly. This one is very interesting. This is Hydro Quebec, and this 3D PDF has views of a hydroelectric dam project. And so when you take a look at the history of what they were doing here before, in order to provide the contractual engineering information to the government of Quebec, they would have to essentially provide a lot of 2D drawings and a lot of different information that we can now condense down into one 3D PDF. So you can see the complexity here. And the other thing that you should notice about this 3D PDF is that as long as I have one of the views that has been approved by the engineers, we have the seal of the engineer's approval here. Now I can go into one of these views and I can go and do any type of viewing or rotation that I'm interested in doing. But what happens is that seal disappears. And so this is basically indicating that this is for information purposes only. And so this is, again, just a really interesting example of, in this case, this is CATIA data that came in along with a lot of different other information as far as the contours of the surrounding hills and other type of piping and electrical information that we could combine into one document that was consumable by the government of Quebec. Okay, so let's move forward a little bit. I'm going to open up some of the web-based product that Stephen was talking about. Now, the publication process that we're talking about can create 3D PDFs, and without getting too commercial, what you're looking at here are just web-based variations or links into similar type of content that we're publishing into 3D PDF. But what is interesting here is that we can combine those. And so, for example, this is web-based content. And so you can see here that this is a printed circuit board, and we've got different cross sections, and we can take a look at the reference designators and this type of information. Hold on one second. But what I can do is I can also have attachments. And so you can see here, as part of this publication to the web content, we can simultaneously publish that information to any type of document that's PDF-based. That could be a replication and a backup with a 3D PDF variation of the same. What we can also have is other information that may be needed as part of that technical data package. So those attachments could include a PDF that has all of the different components and nuts and sheet connections when you take a look. And these are essentially bookmarks within the PDF that can bring you directly down into the schematic of that item. There could be other type of pin configuration or other important information that may or may not be 3D PDF, but it's critical to be able to attach it to the technical data package. So we combine that together with the HTML publication and provide any other type of PDF information that's needed that together really communicates exactly what's expected with this engineering, manufacturing, field service type activity that's included. And then finally, as we're starting to get down near the end here, when you take a look at this content, each one of these links is content that can be published exactly the same way a 3D PDF can be published. But when you take a closer look at that content, what we can do is we can have collaborative activities related to that content. So for example, in the case of this locking pin mechanism for this wind turbine, somebody was able to basically access that content and mark it up. And so for example, I can go through and add a comment here, and in doing that, I can take a look at that original content that was published, and I can go through and mark that content up. And so let's go through and grab that very quickly. And it's coming to the screen. And basically, I'm just going to do something very simple here to show you how a markup is done. And then we'll get back to the reason why this is important to PD as far as the PDF context is concerned. And so basically, I'm just taking a snapshot there and saying this is a needed component. And then that's misspelled, but that's all right. And so now we have a series of markup and collaborative activities that are based on the content that's been published. And what we can do is we can archive that information. And we archive that entire conversation and all the back and forth communication and collaboration that occurs. This is just an example of a PDF of the activity and who's involved in the activity, and all the comments and markups and decisions and basically what was decided. And you'll see this a lot when it comes to systems requirements, where somebody has a requirement and they're trying to make sure that it meets that requirement from an electrical or mechanical point of view. And then once it's been resolved, we archive these PDFs, and these can be thrown into whatever authoritative system that's important to that manufacturing customer. So that's really all I had. I'm going to go back and turn it over to Stephen to just kind of wrap it up here.
Great. Thank you, Jim. I know we're running a little bit short on time, so I'll be brief, but I think what's important to think about in terms of what Jim just showed is the examples is that there's a lot of different applications for PDF and 3D PDF to provide and share technical content effectively, and often the interplay and relationship between web-based delivery and the utilization of PDF as a part of that has become increasingly important to a lot of our customers who really utilize both web and document-based delivery depending on their specific requirements. And so I wanted to just quickly, just one of the examples, and this is well publicized, we presented on this with our partners, but one of the great example use cases that you can find online if you look up the NAVAIR PMA 261, so it was an award-winning initiative in the Navy where they basically undertook a new way of providing 3D model-based definition-based technical data packages for more effective communication and collaboration archival using, of course, 3D PDF with PRC. Great performance benefits. It was all fully automated, all driven by their 3D Experience Novia platform, and really brought down their cost of delivery of the data, avoided the cost of extra CAD seats downstream, and allowed them to serve a much broader market. So I would recommend that you look up the NAVAIR PMA 261, reach out to us, and we can give you a fuller case study on this that you can look at. But it's a great example of how 3D PDF is used as a centerpiece for model-based definition-oriented data exchange and collaboration. So why don't we move on to the final slide so we have time for questions. So just to wrap it up, based on our experience in helping customers with their digitalization and collaboration and content management needs, first and foremost, interoperability and access to complete and current technical data is essential. And then being able to consume that data and package it utilizing various open industry standard formats is also critical. We've shown you examples that you've seen now that have included ISO standard PRC-based 3D PDF, W3C compliant WebGL. We've shown you examples that feature IPC 2581, which is a PCB ECAD standard, and so forth. And there's many more, but this really should be the cornerstone of effective digitalization and data distribution, visualization, collaboration. And then for any of you who are trying to undertake this as a new initiative within your company, leadership and commitment, organizational commitment and alignment is really critical for success. And then access to the right information from virtually any device, any location also has become increasingly important. And then I guess the final point is stick with it, because the ROI and the performance benefits are tremendous. So thank you very much for your time.